Thanks everyone who joined us today and showed the interest to this topic. Today, we'll talk about the importance of accessibility in digital retail and tricks that will actually help you to make your website or application more accessible for a broader audience. While the global number of people who buy online increases, there are still many users who face problems that make shopping online impossible or very difficult for those people. Well, I will probably start from the story of how I became concerned of inaccessible modern web. So about 2 years ago, I had a chance to work with a government of one country. We were developing a service that helps people to create certain documents. Imagine you have to gather dozens of papers and references from different government institutions to get a simple official document. So this usually takes a lot of time and effort. And instead, the idea of that service was to simplify the process and provide an online tool that will help people to get their documents in more easier and less stressful way. All you need is to complete an online form and schedule the visit to service center where you can receive all documents you need. And that's sometimes we call this like e-government. And as every designer, I wanted to find out what my users are. So, and surprisingly, users of that service were the people of that country, millions of people. My job is to make things that are easier to use for people and easy to use in any situations. It's a challenge to design for such a big audience, and people of different age and with different computers will use it. I knew that person who will use it might be a person with a slow internet connection or with old and slow computer, or maybe he or she uses only keyboard to interact with this website. So I asked myself how people with visual, hearing, or motor impairments will use the service I have to design. It's worth mentioning that there was no government guidelines or law that regulates accessibility for digital products, unlike in USA or Great Britain or Australia. And designing that service, I learned a lot about accessible design, and we made accessibility a core principle in our work for that service. So after that, I started to notice that a lot of websites and applications I use are not accessible, and sometimes it's hard to use them, even for me. I had an assumption that developers and designers just don't know that accessibility is important. And well, year after, I, with my teammate, decided to create an online course where we taught designers how to make their interfaces accessible. A part of that course was usability testing with real users, and that was not a surprise that even very popular websites appeared to have weak accessibility, and some people have significant difficulties using them. Or those websites or apps are totally unusable for that people. On the slide, you can see the simplified results of user testing of one of most popular Ukrainian grocery stores. Scenario was the following. We offered a person to buy products they usually buy. And as you can see, for a person with low vision, it was hard, but possible. Even this person had significant difficulties using the interface. Person who used a screen reader who can see the display was not able to pass add to cart and purchase part of this user testing because of weak website accessibility. So often from businesses, you can hear something like, we don't have disabled users using our services. And let's find whether this is true or not. Let's talk about the law that regulates web accessibility. The Americans with Disabilities Act, also known as ADA, is nothing new. First implemented in 1990, it was the United States government first step towards addressing the needs of citizens living with disabilities. ADA focuses on eliminating discrimination in digital world, from telephonic communications to the internet, television, and other digital services. Every day, tasks such as surfing the web or watching television ranged from inconvenient to impossible with hearing, vision, or other physical impairments. A lot of other countries have similar laws, but let's see the lawsuit statistics in USA related to web accessibility. In 2017, there were more than 800 lawsuits. In 2018, they raised to 2,200. It's estimated that during next years, such cases will just rise. There are cases include small businesses as well as some of the most well-known brands worldwide. In 2019 was an important year for web accessibility legislation, including the first case approaching to the Supreme Court in USA. So here is the top 5 web accessibility lawsuits in USA. Netflix, and thanks to that lawsuit, that case, a lot of streaming services implemented closed captions and improved their interfaces so people with hearing, visual impairments can consume the content. Jill filed suit against Winn-Dixie grocery chain and claimed their website not accessible to visually impaired users. The judge ruled in favor of Jill, explaining that Winn-Dixie has violated the ADA because the inaccessibility of its website has denied Jill the full and equal enjoyment of the goods, services, facilities, privileges, advantages, or accommodations that Winn-Dixie offers to its sighted customers. And one more case about Nike, that Maria filed the suit against Nike and several other prominent businesses in 2017 due to a lack of website accessibility for low vision users. Nike is one of dozens of fashion businesses sued for inaccessibility, and most of these cases share common elements. The websites don't work with screen readers, they lack alt text and use empty links. These are some of the most common web accessibility issues across the internet, and these suits highlight the importance of checking for these issues. The top industries are food service, travel, real estate, and entertainment, with retail leading the pack for industry with the most lawsuits. Like 31% of all accessibility suits in USA are related to retail. So lawsuits relating to a digital accessibility make it not a case of if, but case of when organizations will get sued for inaccessible software. To avoid those risks, better take a proactive approach to protect your organization, plans, and budget. And now let's talk about brands. So creating accessible web experiences will not only help you to avoid negative impact, but also gives your business a great opportunities for your brand. Accessibility allows for more people to have a positive experiences with your brand, and the foundation of positive brand image are how many people use and have a positive interactions with your brand. When web experiences aren't accessible, some people are automatically excluded from ever having the opportunity to have that positive experience, although they may have definitely a negative one. So accessibility could create more opportunities for your brand advocates. When people have one positive interaction with your company, they are more likely to become loyal to your brand. When they feel that service they received could benefit people they know, they're going to make recommendations to that people. Also, accessibility provides a chance to demonstrate social responsibility. More and more people are choosing to support brands that share their values. As digital accessibility continues to become mainstream, those values for many include the accessibility of products and services. So the accessibility not only allows to avoid lawsuits, but also benefits your brand. In 2018, American Institute for Research says that the total after-tax disposable income for working-age people with disabilities is about 500 billion. Sounds a lot, and that's only in USA. The customer experience is everything when it comes to connecting and building relationships with market. Improving the accessibility and usability of sites for all users enhances user experience and improve customer acquisition, satisfaction, and loyalty. The equation is simple here. So the better accessibility is, the better usability is, and more people can use a website. This means you can sell more widely, and more users you have on a website and better usability means more conversions. So let's talk about what accessibility actually is. A lot of people underestimate the importance of accessibility and get it wrong. So accessibility refers to the design of products, devices, services, or environments so as they to be usable by people with disabilities. I like that Tim Berners-Lee said, and totally agree with them, that the power of the web is in its universality. Access by everyone, regardless of disability, is an essential aspect. When we design and develop the product, we often create and evaluate our ideas based on what we know. But here is a problem. If we use our own abilities as a baseline, we make things that are easier for some people to use, but difficult for everyone to use. And quite often we get disability wrong as only a health problem. So World Health Organization says that disability is not just a health problem. It is a complex phenomenon reflecting the interactions between features of person's body and features of the society in which he or she lives. In fact, sometimes disability is temporary and sometimes disability is situational. In USA, around 26,000 people a year suffer loss of an upper limb. If we include people with temporary disability or like broken arm and situational disabilities, for example, when you're carrying a heavy bag in your hands, the number of people who can't use their upper limb increases to like 20 million. So we go from benefiting from less than 0.01% of users to around 7% of users. So disability is not only a health condition, it is a mismatched human interaction. Disability happens at the point of interaction between a person and interface. Physical, cognitive, and social exclusion is the result of mismatched interactions. As designers, developers, and business owners, it's our responsibility to know how our designs affect these interactions and create mismatches. So now when we know how positive impact accessibility, accessible retail website could have, we can probably have questions. So how to make website more accessible? Fortunately, there is a web content accessibility guidelines, and the goal of those guidelines is to provide a single shared standard for web content accessibility that meets the needs of individuals, organizations, and governments. Based on that document, I prepared most vital improvements you can do, but at the same time, one of most ignored. So let's start from the simple one, but also one of most essential things you can do on your website. What is the contrast? It's a difference in perceived luminance or brightness between two objects. On image, we can clearly see snow borders, but what makes them visible? So, right, that's the difference between color of their suits and snow. And by the way, ski equipment has such colors not because only it's cool looking. It also plays an important role in safety. In critical situation, it can save lives, helping rescuers to quickly find a person in the snow and come to his aid. So how color contrast has to deal with interfaces? Color contrast is a difference between two colors and measured from 1 to 1. That's the white text on a white background or a black text on a black background. So totally invisible, which is actually the lowest value of contrast. And it goes to 21 to 1. That's the white text on the black background or a black text on a white background. That's the highest contrast. It is recommended to aim as minimum as 4.5 to 1. This minimum helps people to read your content in different situations. So let's check an example. On this image, you can see insufficient text contrast of text on links, navigation, buttons, and name of product. It's lower than 4.5 to 1, and I'm sure that for many of us who has a normal, from of course a medical meaning of this world vision, it is not comfortable to read this text. So, and second example, text contrast is higher than 4.5 to 1, and it is much easier to read the text. So some of us may barely see the difference between two, right? But it makes a huge impact for people with visual impairments and in different situations. So how to measure the color contrast? You can use simple tools. There are a lot of them on the web or plugins for design tools. I like this simple one from WebAim. You can enter text foreground and background color, and it shows contrast and additional information whether it passes different level of WCAG. So color contrast criterion is very easy to complete, and it benefits following users. So it's much easier for people with low vision and medium vision impairments to read the text. Good contrast also helps colorblind people. It helps elderly people, which usually face age vision degradation, and also helps people who use device with a low brightness when they use their phones on a bright sunlight. All of us actually face those situations quite often, right? So the next important thing when we talk about the interface elements, it's important to understand that the bigger element is, the easier is to click on that element. Regardless, you're using the mouse of your computer or a finger with a touch device, right? Minimum recommended requirement for the size of interactive elements by WCAG is 44 by 44 CSS pixels. It affects links, buttons, text fields, and selects, clickable icons. So everything you can interact with, click or tap on. So on this example, you can see that breadcrumbs link, add to cart button, or this icon, favorite, are too small. So, and there is a chance that some users can't see them, or even if they see those elements, they may be difficult to tap on or click on them. So here I improved the size of elements, and when you have sufficient size, it's easier to see those elements and easier to interact with them. So when we talk about native applications, there are also platform accessibility guidelines. For example, Apple Human Interface Guidelines recommends to have a minimum size of interactive elements by 44 by 44 points. And material guidelines by Android recommends to have a 48 by 48 for a touch targets and 44 by 44 for a pointer targets. And users who use a mobile device where touch screen is a primary mode of interaction will benefit when they have a big size of elements. Also, it helps users with mobility impairments such as hand tremors. People who have difficulty with fine motor movements also benefits from having the big elements on the screen. Also, it helps having a sufficient target size helps users with big fingers so they can easily use mobile devices. And of course, it benefits users who have low vision. They may better see the target. All right, so before going to next one, I just want to explain how people with who can see the screen use internet. So they use screen readers, and those are the programs that transforms text and images on the screen into speech and help blind people to use computers. They read the interface element by element using commands from a keyboard. And also modern screen readers have advanced functionality like read all links, read page headers, etc. On example, you can see that focus goes from one element to another. And in the black box below, you can see what people will actually hear. So understanding how screen readers work will help us to understand how we should implement the markup. So semantic markup means that means using the correct HTML elements for their intended purpose as much as possible. Why is this important? So you can use a combination of CSS and JavaScript to make just any HTML element behave in whatever way you want. So on this example, we have two buttons. One is for one we use the div element, and for another button element, and they look the same, right? But here is a problem for people who use keyboard. First button will not be focusable, and people who use screen readers might not understand that this is a button. So button tag has built-in accessibility and will help visually impaired people to understand this is a button and you can interact with that. Also, screen readers screen readers often reads websites starting from headers. So it is very important to have H1, H2 tags on a website as well as other elements like header or nav tags for header navigation and so on. So I see that I'm running out of time, so I will touch this one shortly. So multimedia content like images and videos cannot be seen by visually impaired people. And for that kind of content, it is important to use the alt text. Screen reader will probably read file name and that's it. One reader encounters image with alt text, it reads white juice pack with an image of a green apple on it, if you have prepared that in advance. So note that the contents of the alt attribute should always provide a direct representation of the image and what it conveys visually. So I will skip this one, but you can see, later see it in the presentation. And probably the most important thing you can do is to have the user testings. You can do a lot using automation tools or completing criteria of WCAG, but as you test, you may find out the ideas for improvements for your website or application and identify usability issues. All right, so if you want to learn more, you can visit the WCAG guidelines website. All criteria is gathered there, and also you can visit the course we created with Slava Shestopalov. Currently there are 9 free videos related to this topic, as well as extended course where we analyze each criteria and test interfaces with people who have physical impairments. And just to sum up, so shopping is a crucial to surviving and thriving for everyone. From consumers to merchants. If we deny accessibility, it has a globally negative impact. It's easy to argue that online shopping is easier, but it's easier if it's accessible to you. Except for social responsibility, your business benefits of reducing your legal risks, having an accessible website and application will positively affect your brand. And probably the most important thing for the business, it helps to sell more widely and increase conversions. Thank you.